What's up, guys? Theta. For the longest time, we've been talking about Wyckoff accumulations going all the way back till the end of September, and we finally have some proof that it is Wyckoff. The reason why is because if you look right here, this is the number one thing that I was looking for was the pivot off the spring from this Wyckoff pattern. So people were looking at this, right? Support, and obviously we had support here, but you notice we broke right through it, right? And we actually closed there, but then we immediately pivoted off the low, okay? And that to me shows the sign of strength in that spring. And also the reason why they had to take it below this was the same reason they had to take it below back over here when I first started my channel, right? This is the exact same sort of setup here. Let me just put it right about there. Okay, you can see, right? We were working our way down, and look at this right here. Boom. So support. Look at that right there. That was a landmark sort of move right there, because that kind of told me like, okay, this is it, right? And what did we do? We reversed on a dime and we went skyrocketing to the high, right? So once I saw that Theta was around 64 cents or so, that's when I said, okay, I believe the low is in, and I believe now we're going to start making our way for the retracements. But there's so many people out there that are so bullish. So my idea was like, okay, I'm going to start doing some YouTube videos to explain what I'm seeing. And, a lot of people were bullish, right? But a lot of people were not. And I had to come out and say, look, this is a beautiful Wyckoff structure. And look what happened after that. I mean, we just ripped and ripped and ripped and ripped to the upside, following this miniature, super small Wyckoff accumulation, right? And what was even cooler is that this whole thing right here was also Wyckoff, right? And that right there was your liquidity grab. So remember, if you have $10 million and you want to buy Theta, you can't just go on the exchange and say, here's my money, fill my order, right? It doesn't work that way. So you need these liquidity areas, and that's why they target the lows. That's why they target the highs. That's why trend lines are meant to be broken, because what lies underneath a trend line, right? It's kind of like, don't dig, near that certain street, because you're going to hit that water line. And you hit that water line, that water main's going to bust. You're going to bust the pipe and you're going to have water going everywhere. Well, what is water? It's liquidity. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, think about, this is your pipes down in here, and you're drilling and boom, right? And now you're going to go insane. You know what I mean? Sort of a weird example, but you see what I mean. So you can kind of see a screenshot from way back in the day, right? I mean, not way back in the day, but that was back when we were at the top of the range. And it was a simple chart explaining, like, look, we could round out of here. This was schematic 2. However, now fast forward today, we actually were looking at schematic 1, in which instead of this rounding action, you kind of get a quick move down, and then you pierce that low, grab that liquidity, then come, which is this example right here. So now that we're looking at it, now it's becoming a lot more clear. I mean, you can see it. It's becoming more believable that this is what it is, right? So you can actually move this over right here and put it up, and you can technically say that this was your move up. There's your move up. You come back down, right? You come back down, you take out the low, right? And then you move back up, right? Without taking the high. Same thing here. You moved up without taking the high. And then what did you do? Well, and then you started drizzling down, and then this example here, right? You break this low, you break this low, you initiate the spring phase, and then you have a very quick reversal. That's exactly what we see here, right? And not only that, but we have a beautiful three-wave move as well. So A, B, C, right? And then we also had a three-wave move here, 1, 2, 3. And that three-wave move actually marked the low, marked the bottom here, right? Just right underneath this. So it grabbed that liquidity and reversed. So we're still very early, right? Still anything can happen. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but now we actually see the progress. We actually see this potentially being finished, right? So we're right here at resistance. You could see we pull back, pull back, pull back, and then we continue higher. So I'd like to see us maybe flag out a little bit and then continue higher, but don't even be surprised if we have to come back all the way back to the lows. For example, when you shoot up like this, a lot of times you can come back down. Here's a bottom, and then you get another bottom, and then you kind of go back up, right? So you get you build a little base right here showing accumulation above the previous low. So that tells me that, this thing's gearing up to go a lot higher. Or we can simply, hopefully this is the case, we can simply just flag out a little bit and then continue marching our way higher. So we need price action to back it up. And one of the things that really gets people excited is look at Bitcoin, guys. We hit $77.1 thousand. Man, I think I've told you guys this. 2020, I bet one Bitcoin that Trump would win the election. Oh man, that hurt me so bad because I know he won, but I bet one Bitcoin. Actually, there's a guy, you might know the guy. He's actually on YouTube. He's always on the Tone Vase channel. So his name is Jimmy Song. He's an Asian guy with a cowboy hat. And me and him, we were on the computer, and I said, dude, I'll bet you one Bitcoin. And he took it up. He goes, okay. And the only reason he did that was to hedge his other bet that he made. So he ended up winning the bet. He got my one Bitcoin, and now that Bitcoin is worth $77,000, and it really hurts. But you know what? I felt like, obviously they stole the election and things like that. But now that I look back at it, I understand why it had to go that way. So that's why I'm never making any bets in the election ever again. But I was pretty confident that Trump would win simply because we had no choice to win. I mean, this is his final moment. And if he didn't win, that was it. So I felt that he woke up enough people in order for him to secure that victory. And that was the whole point of Joe Biden being president, was because he knew he didn't want to be president. Because if he was president, we would have still had all the inflation, right? Because he knew the after effects of C-19 and all that government printing, right? He knew the inflation would go up. He knew all these prices would go higher. And he didn't want to be in the White House during that time. So he's kind of pretended, oh yeah, they stole it, but they really did. And he knew they would. Right? Because they were fearing that he would seek retribution. And I bet behind closed doors, he was showing, look what you did. I'm going to nail you for it. So they get scared. And that's why the fake news goes after him so relentlessly. And the people standing on the sidelines why are you making such a big deal about it? Probably because he has things on him. I think about Epstein stuff. Think about the P. Diddy stuff. Think about all that other, because that's how they control celebrities. I think a lot of celebrities, more celebrities like Trump than they don't. People go, well, that's ridiculous. Hollywood hates Trump. Well, you got to understand why. Because they probably have a lot of blackmail on these people, right? And that's how they control very big, powerful people, is through blackmail. You invite a big celebrity that's starting out, right? And you basically put him in a situation where okay, if you come out, I got dirt on you. You know what I mean? So they've done this with all the young stars, right? So, anyways, that's a story for another day. But man, Bitcoin $77,000. So the whole thing with Bitcoin is that we're looking at this either one as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We get a diag and then we flag out, continue higher, or we have a 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And then we have another 1, 2, and we're just getting ready to explode into that third wave. Now, the 1, 2, 1, 2 looks more probable at the moment. So that's kind of the count I'm leaning towards. Like I said, going back all throughout here, I said either it's going to be a diag or a 1, 2, 1, 2. And it looks like we're getting the 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's a great thing, right? We consolidated long enough, right? We made a lot of progress, right? Flagging out in here, right? Reaccumulation. And I think this move right here obviously marked the low, and that was like a C19 style event, right? And I remember looking at fractals following this event, right? Where we poked our head up, we came back down, right? But the fractal actually said that we would hold this low and continue higher. We actually dipped below it, right? And I can see that was a little bit of a liquidity grab here. And then we continued higher. So it was definitely challenging, right? But you can see we're clearly making some type of ascending channel, right? You can see the channel right there. And I think that's where we're heading. I think we're heading, like I said the other day, probably back to this upper part of the channel here. So if I take the channel and I do this, and I kind of come down, you can see this channel here is actually pretty clean, and we actually broke above it. So that's cool. So it's a little bit subjective how you put it, but that's why I like to use a regression trend. So if you scroll down a little bit right here, it automatically puts it. So you take it from the bottom all the way to this low, and you can see, let me take it off log scale because it doesn't work. You can see clearly we're breaking out of that. So then what I would do is just simply, take a trend line here and follow that line all the way to the top and then put it right about there, right? Now, you can see the middle line here, very significant, right? The support, look at that. Very significant. So now I can get rid of this, and there's my line right there. And then if I wanted to put another one, I could, but there's no reason to because we're not even near that. So now what I'll do is I'll go down to the smaller time frames. And remember, wow, I can't believe. Remember what I said. This is exactly one of the corrections I said to look out for, which is what? Which is kind of a running correction. How you pump up here, boom, 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 and then you start going in this sort of this upwards channel here. And that's kind of seems like what we're doing, which means what? Which means this thing's going to break out because we're bottlenecking. So for example, there was a great example. Here's a great example over here. I mean, I like this example a lot because basically look at this as your high, right? You come down and look at this. You had sort of, 3 up, and then you came down, and then you made a double bottom. You broke out, you flagged out, and then look what you did. You came up, and then you went into this running correction above the high. So that's important, right? So taking this right here, right? This is the type of correction that I'm thinking is playing out here. So what then I can do is simply take a bars pattern, right? Just to kind of give us a little bit of a sense of how it will look. So, the inclination, right? How it's really, really steep. like this one is not that steep, so it's not really good to match up with. But you can kind of see what I'm saying here. This type of correction, you know, some type of move like this, where we're just kind of, you know, we hit the high, we play around a little bit, right? We flag out. Before you know it, we're breaking out. So definitely look out for that. But it's still a little bit too early to kind of confirm that yet. So we have to sort of wait and see. But one thing we have going for it is we have plenty of wiggle room, right? Which could be very dangerous for the altcoins. But here's our support area that we should hold above. You could see we made a 5-wave move. 1, 2, right? We had 3, 4, and 5. So we could get something like an A. We come up for a B, right? Because that's all we have right now is a 1, 2, 3-wave move, right? So here's your A, here's your B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We come down into wave C. It could be some kind of flat, right? And then continue onward. So, but if we want to break out now, if this thing's ready to go, then we could look at it as sort of a running correction where you have an A, B, and a C. And then you're basically accumulating from, you know, 50% of that B wave, right? So then you break out. So yeah, I think it looks really cool. So let's go to the 4-hour. Again, where could this thing potentially go here? Well, I mean, simply speaking, you know, we looked at the 1-to-1 extension, which I believe we already hit. Yeah, we cleared the 1-to-1 at 75K. So the next stop is 78 to 80K. So I think that's where we're going. I think we're going to 78, 80K. All right. And then from there, you know, that's a 1618 extension. So from there, I would expect a little bit of, you know, consolidation and or you know, or even a nice sized correction. And during this time, that's when we want to see Bitcoin get boring, liquidity start to rotate in some of the altcoins, right? So we'll see about that. But let's go back to Theta for a moment. And let me just explain something real quick, which is, you know, we still have a long way to go for Theta, right? I mean, when you compare it to something like Dogecoin, it's already well on its way. You know, it's already, you know, challenging the highs up here, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, you know, we're still very early, but this thing can change very quickly. So what we really need to do is get back to this top range here, and we need to do it as soon as we could, right? So we get 3 up, we get 3 down, and then eventually you can see this area right here, and then obviously this area right here, right? So you can see once we cross that area, we slice straight up and then we slice straight down. So there's a little bit of a gap there. So obviously once we break this line, I think it's a straight shot up to $1.90. And $1.90 has been on my mind for, I mean, my target for quite some time. Because that's this bottom part of this this wave here. So from there, right, we probably would flag out a little bit and then retest this area, fill in those, you know, that sort of that volume profile, and then continue back up to the upper part of this correction, you know, basically like the 786, the 886, right around in there. And then from there, right, it's anybody's guess, right, what happens from there. You know, it's too hard to know where Bitcoin's going to be. It's going to be too hard to know exactly where everything's at. But just, you know, chronologically speaking, from there, we should break out, right? Here's your sell side of the curve, your buy side of the curve. Let's go, right? And where we could go is, let's zoom out a little bit. And the same thing applies with Theta Fuel, right? So where we could go is back to about $4.40, up to about, say, almost $9. So that's my target for Theta. Between $4 and $9. I would just say between $5 and $10. Let's just make it simple. So the thing is once we get there, right? Because I still think this could be a 1 2 1 2 1 2, right? And then we have another 1 2, right? If that's the case, then we should see the third wave, right? So what we see now is we're at the beginning of that third wave, right? So the third wave needs how many waves? It needs 5 waves, right? So maybe we get a 1 2 3 4 and 5, right? And it really takes us up there, right? I'd actually do something like this, boom, boom, something like that, right? And you have a 1 2 1 2. Here's your third, and then from there we flag out for a wave 4, right? Just like what Bitcoin's doing now, or for example Total 3 is doing. It's flagging out in a wave 4 right in this area. So wave 3 I believe is upon us. So it'll be wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and then once we flag out in there, then we can get wave 5. 1 2 3 4 5, right? So that will be very, very interesting. And then what we can see beyond all that is our famous W pattern. Boom, 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 boom. Just like what Ethereum did back in the day, that W pattern, right? Here's your low, your higher low. So yeah, I think we're very much well on our way. But it still needs proof, right? I mean, we've got a little bit of a bounce. It's very, very early. But the reason I'm very confident is, number one, obviously Bitcoin is breaking out. I mean, there's no disputing that now. Yes, it could have some big pullbacks, but it looks like we're expanding. We got through all the fib levels. But look at this. We broke out, we back tested, we back tested, we back tested, right? We're basically finding support above the supply line, right? So the supply line, every time we hit this line, there's the supply. We broke out, and right here we pinpointed it, right? So now it's all about breaking above this flag here. So what I would do now is simply take another one, put it right about there, right? And we can get rid of that one now. Let's zoom into the 20-minute chart. I mean, you can see we're close. We're close to that line. So what's happening in the small time frames? Well, if we look at the small time frames, it's still a little bit corrective for me. Obviously, we have a 1 2. You could say that this is 3 4 and 5, right? And that's 1, and now this is 2, and now this is 1 2. Now we're about to go in that 3 4 and 5 for 3. Or you can say that this is 1 2, all of that's 3, and now we have wave 4, and now we're getting wave 5. So of the first wave, right? Not counting the third wave. Another thing too is, if this is going to be more complex, we could see, for example, A, right? And then we come up B, or actually it would be W, X, right? And then we come down, boom, 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 for Y. And that would be a flat, right? And then what we would have is actually a 1 and a 2, and maybe another 1 and a 2. And then hopefully we can really start to accelerate to the upside. But this correction does look bullish. It looks very bullish. So there's a couple things. Anytime you come down and you bounce off and you get right back here, a lot of times you could come all the way back down to this base down in here. So basically this area right in here, right? So you could get like 3 up or 3 down, and then you get 3 up, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So it basically becomes an expanded flat, right? So you have A, right? You get B, and then you get C. A, B, C, right? Get back down to here, right? Because you take this whole wave and you basically just cut it in half, and that's a lot of times where you go. So, but if this isn't finished yet, right? If this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and we still need 5, well, then we still have more upside, right? So that's kind of what I'm waiting for as far as the small time frames is concerned. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about most of them, like even Shib here, right? Same kind of thing. You got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, now you're ABCing, or you got a B, C, D, E, a triangle for a wave 4, right? So 1, 2, all of that's 3. Maybe this is a 4th wave triangle, and then we get 5. So it, you know, but you have to understand we're right here at resistance. So A, B, C coming back down 50% here before going higher, resetting that momentum is definitely possible. Because when we look at Shib on a total, because I think meme coins are going to be very interesting. This, you know, meme coins every time seem to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I mean, maybe not the same ones, but the meme coin field. And when you look at Shib, it really hasn't had anything incredible quite yet. I mean, it did the first time, but when you look at Shib, right, it's really only had 1 wave, right? So where's the 3rd wave at? So to me, this is a wave 1, or like a 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And now we're building a base in here, another 1, 2, 1, 2, right? Another 1, 2. And now it looks like we're about to rip off into the 3rd wave and then get 4 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 later on. So, you know, I think Shib is going to be definitely one to look out for as far as this bull run goes. And the wake up line is sort of really is above that line there, right? And you can see a pretty interesting, you know, like a cup here, and now we're making a handle right into that resistance line. So where could this thing go? I mean, get up to whatever the hell that is, 1821, 0000 1821. But more realistically, right? Remember, Shib on its 3rd wave had a pretty massive pump, right? So at the very least, I would say that the 2618 here up to the 4.236, because remember, this is on linear scale. When you look at meme coins, you kind of want to look on log scale, right? So that I would actually target that 1618. So from where we are now, I mean, that's about a 2,400% move to the upside. But that's still a little further away. That's still for alt season. You know, so actually November is actually doing pretty well so far for crypto. We still have December. So by the way, let's look at total, because remember, Brad Garlinghouse predicted a $5 trillion market cap by the election. And look at that, I still have my old drawings on from I don't even know how long ago. Wow, that's crazy. I thought I deleted that. So yeah, our fifth wave to the upside. And yeah, and I think I was talking about that too, because that was July or January 1st. So can we get to 5 trillion by January 1st? I mean, it sure looks like it. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not too far away. I mean, it's actually pretty close, as far as January 1st goes. But I don't think we're going to get there. I don't think we're going to get quite there. But if we did, I would just be incredibly stoked about it. But look, remember when I was talking about Theta, how once we get back towards its retracement levels, let's see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, okay. So remember what I said here, right? So for example, 1, 2, we get 3, right? We get wave 3, and then we flag out for wave 4 right in this area here, right? That's exactly what's happening with total, and even total 3, which is what? 1, 2, 3, and now look, we're flagging out for 4 right around the all-time high. That's what we want for Theta, right? Which means we haven't had the big daddy move yet. We haven't had that jumbo third wave yet, right? Let alone the fifth. So we can see very clearly that this was a wave 4, and now we're right back at resistance here. So as far as the total market cap goes, we're at $2.5 trillion. We're basically halfway there. Like, it's a little bit challenging to know exactly where, but look, if I put on a retracement, very simple, right? And let me go back to regular. I can see 3 trillion by the end of the year. I think that's, I don't like making predictions like that because it involves time. But no doubt in my mind we'll hit 3 to 5 trillion next year. But as far as the end of the year, I think we can hit 3 trillion. Even maybe a little higher than that. I mean, we're only 500 billion away, and Bitcoin can eat that for dinner, right? So, I mean, it's not too out of the question at the moment. Another way I can do it too is just by taking this third wave, going all the way up, and then bringing it down to the fourth wave, and then hitting that 1-to-1 extension right there. So actually, I think that would be a better target, which it would be 3.4 trillion. So I'm going to come out on the record and I'm going to say my target for January 1st is 3.4 trillion. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, because you still have all these guys right in here, and it's going to be hard to get through them. But I think once the altcoin sort of momentum really kicks into high gear, because remember, we still have to get through a lot of retracement levels. For example, like, when we look at, I mean, I can really take any coin, really. Let's see, Uniswap. Yeah, like Uniswap here. I mean, we still have to get through these retracement levels, right, before we can really start to fly, right? So, I mean, working your way back up here, it's always challenging and time consuming, right? So anyways, let's look at Theta versus Bitcoin. I think Theta versus Bitcoin is finished. Look at that. You can see the 5-wave move there. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Perfect. Look at the divergence. No, we don't have any on the 5-day, but I'm sure we do on the daily. Actually, no, we're oversold on the daily. So I'm curious what the weekly looks like. Oh yeah, look at that bullish divergence. Look at that. So we made a low, right? We made a lower low, but look at the RSI, we made a higher low. So we have bullish divergence on the weekly chart when it comes to Theta versus Bitcoin. I mean, you don't get that every day, right? So one of the big things here was that this was obviously, you could say 1, 2, or actually 1, 2, 3, and then you have 4, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. Right? So what do you expect now? So now you're right back at the base, at home base here. So what's the common sense thing now? Well, it would be to get up here, flag out, get up here, basically getting back into the retracement levels here, right? Because you got to look at alt versus Bitcoin pairs kind of like an oscillator, right? So they come down. I mean, we could still technically have more downside. I mean, the fifth wave, the fifth of the fifth, might not be finished completely. So this wave here might be a little bit further, but the whole thing in general is I think very close. So once that thing, I'm looking at getting back at least to that 50% area. So T-drop, T-drop, like I think it's obviously, it's flagging out in here. So I want to see it get back to the retracement levels, and I think it will. I just think it needs some time. Those wicks really do a disservice. So when you look at it like this, it's basically making a base in here. Let's get back up there. I mean, that's really all I have to say about that. Look at the S&P 500 on the weekly chart, guys. It's got 44 minutes to the close. Look at that bullish weekly engulfing candle. This is all because of what? Donald Trump winning the election, right? People are, a little bit relieved because they feel like, the inflation is going to get under control. I mean, he's a builder, he's a fixer. So we'll see how all that plays out. I know it really doesn't matter as far as president, because when you look at Joe Biden, when he was president, we started going higher, I think. Let's see, that was back in January of 2021. So right there, I think that's when he took office, and we still marched our way higher. So let's see where this wave takes us. It's a little difficult to count Elliott waves on the stock market because they're just so broad and extended. That's why I don't really trade the stock market. But if I had to look at it, I would say that this is a 1-2, 1-2, and then we're in the middle of the third. So we'll see how that plays. All right, let's look at some coins here. If you missed it, I put out a video. Whoa, look at Link. Nice weekly chart. Let's look at the wick there. Link's doing good. I mean, they're all doing really good. Let's see, Caspa. See, Caspa's not, though. And I warned you guys about this. I said I wouldn't touch it, man. I just, not because it's no good, but look at the chart. It's just straight up. It's been going up for the last 2 years straight. So up for 2 years. I mean, how do you buy that? I just don't understand how you buy it. I mean, yeah, I could keep going, but there's no entry at all for me here. So that's why I don't touch it. Now, I could trade it. I can trade it back into this spot and I can take my profit. But as far as hitting a home run with it, I think everybody already made their money. So IOTA is like an old coin. Look at how old this coin is, right? And it's actually interesting because it made a three-way move here. And I don't have I'm not sure why I don't have more data, because I know IOTA is actually, okay, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's an A, and then you come up 3 waves, that's a B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for C. So A, B, C. This is a, 2018. So this is a 6-year 3-wave pullback. I mean, think about that for a minute. Now, I don't know what this thing's going to do, but it looks like it wants to, like if this is your wave 1, and then here's your ABC pullback for a wave 2. Looks like it wants to continue higher. I don't own any. I used to, but it just kept bleeding and bleeding, so I got rid of it. But now it looks pretty decent right here. So if I turn on the weekly chart, look at that. You got bullish divergence there. So it is an older coin. It doesn't have all the hype around it like some of these newer ones. But I think I saw this graph here, and I'm not sure. I thought IOTA was on here. Anyways, I thought that was kind of a cool graph showing all the different things. Yeah, for some reason I thought IOTA was on here. Or actually, I want to say this is the IOTA down here. But it says DAG on there. Oh, that's okay, never mind. Yeah, it didn't say... Yeah, it doesn't even say the coin's name. Yeah, but I know that's the symbol though. This is their logo here. So I think this is... It says a distributed ledger smart contract platform for autonomous transactions between machines over the, oh yeah, IOTA, yeah, including data, digital IDs, and crypto. Okay, all right. I see LCX. I want to check that one out. So here's LCX, and man, see, it just, when things go up like that, you know, it just makes it difficult. Let's look at this on regular scale. Yeah, it's a little challenging because obviously we have a 1. Let me go back to log scale now. So for this one, the best hope is that it's a running flat. So we have an A, we come up for a B, right? And then we sort of play around a little bit and then go. Or you can argue that this was an A, B, C, and that's the wave, and this is a 1, 2, 1, 2, and now we're ready to rip into that third wave. It's hard to know exactly, but it's not my favorite looking chart. ADA had a pretty big day today, and that's exactly what I was talking about with ADA and Filecoin. I said they are both very, very tight in here, very tight. So I said you're going to see some pressure get relieved one way or another, and we saw that. Look at that monster move. Unfortunately, I didn't get to participate in that. You know, you can't buy them all, right? So as far as the trades go. But I try to be selective on them. But yeah, that's what we wanted to see here. And actually it kind of looked a little bit like ICP in a way, and Filecoin, how it came down here, right? It tagged the low, it came up, made a higher low, and then bam, straight up. So if we look at Filecoin, something similar, but not at the same velocity as ADA. So it's challenging for me to buy this. Like for me, dollar cost averaging is not what I'm doing now. I'm sort of waiting. Like if, you know, anytime you get these moves up, you kind of just wait and see what happens. So I want to see a little bit of a pullback here before I can think about getting in. Yeah, especially for ADA. So yeah, I told you guys I was in near protocol, and look at near. Look what it's doing. You see that, right? It's making this running correction. So we have a 1, 2, looks like 3, 4, and 5, and then it sort of looks like we're making this running correction, which ultimately means we could break out to the upside. So I really like the way this is shaping out. Yeah, I like the way it looks. Definitely looks like more upside. Now, it could also be like an A, B, and a C, and we come down here, we take this liquidity out, and then we go up, but who cares, honestly? I mean, either way, I think it looks pretty decent right now, especially because look how big this one was. We had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, extended fifth, right? So you had an A, B, C, right? You had 3 up, you had 3 down, you met right back down at support here, right? Just like the Wyckoff, you get up here, you flag out, and then eventually you get your way back to the top here. So I think still a lot of progress to be made. But XLM, I put a video out yesterday basically going over XLM, you know, so if you want to, and XRP. So if you're interested in XLM, XRP, I did a full presentation on those 2 coins, so definitely go check it out. But long story short, we have 3 up, we have a big 3 waves down, right? We have this move here, and now an impulse, and now we're flagging out. So eventually this thing's gonna hopefully get back to about 13 cents and even higher than that, because when you look at it from a 3-day perspective, right, you could say A, B, C, D, and E, right? And there's your first wave. So we could literally get something like that, right? And then higher. So look at the W. See the W? And that's what I think is shaping out. You can see how you have that set up there. So anyways, Shib, we already looked at it. Yeah, it's just consolidating. You know, it's in a very tight range. So it makes me wonder, you know, to me, you got accumulation, you step up, you got more accumulation, right? It's kind of like how what Bitcoin did. Let's see if I could pull it up real quick. Remember Bitcoin right here, right? You had accumulation, right? You stepped up, and then you had more accumulation, and basically you were just going sideways, and then you just blasted off. So I think that's where Shib is right now. Look at that. Looks really good. So let's look at the 4-hour here. So you kind of want to say A, B, C, and then you want to say 1, 2, and then maybe another 1, 2, right? So that's kind of what you want to say, but let's keep moving here. IMX, remember these guys got a Wells notice, and I was brave enough to take a stab. I actually got a really good, my entry was $1.04, so right there. So that was, and that's why I didn't really want to cut it, because I got a really good deal on it. So 104, so right about there. I saw that that divergence, and I came out and I actually showed, I go, look how massive that is. I mean, that's huge, right? So you had this move down, move up, and that's why I don't buy into these SEC lawsuits. I mean, you know, it's definitely bearish right now. I mean, we could actually come all the way back down. So we have to, you know, have to be kind of careful. But, you know, if we do, I'll just break even, right? So no problem there. But yeah, I really want to see it, you know, kind of flag out in here, which it's kind of doing now, but then eventually break out. So let's look at the 30-minute chart here. You know, this is how you know, it kind of teaches you how to trade, is kind of going through the thought process, right? And that's why these videos are longer than normal, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. You have an A, B, and then maybe you have a diag for C. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Something like that before breaking out. Another thing too is it could get more complex. You just take a retracement from the bottom, go all the way to the top, and as long as we stay above this area here, we're golden, right? So we want to stay above $1.10. Actually, if we break $1.10 and $1.07, I could just take my profit on that, you know, if it wants to continue down, because again, they got a Wells notice from the SEC. I don't know exactly when they're going to get the actual lawsuit, but you know what I mean. So got to be careful with that because it could just tank, you know, which it already did. It had a pretty big move to the downside. So I want to see it sort of flag out a little bit, and I want to see it get a little bit higher here. So I took a stab at it only because it was discounted pretty nicely. XRP, same thing. It's a little bit bearish. Remember, it's Friday. We're going into the weekend, so we could have some selling pressure over Saturday, Sunday, and even Monday, right? Because you know, if we have a big, powerful weekly candle, the following weekly candle usually wicks down into like halfway point of the previous one. So let's see, XRP. Yeah, I mean, you could say 1, 2, right? And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 3. So 1, 2. And now what we're doing is A, B, C, D, E. Maybe we're doing a triangle for a wave 4, and then we get wave 5. So that's one way we can look at it. All right, is a fourth wave triangle. Another way to look at it is if this is done. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's finished. And then we sort of have an A, maybe this comes up for a B, and then we come down for a C. And we get back down to like 52 cents, or about that halfway mark, boom, 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 and then hopefully continue. But we really don't want to go down anymore because we want a strong weekly candle, right? For example, we want the weekly candle to at least close above 54 cents, you know what I mean? So we've already got a pretty big wick here. We don't want it to get any bigger, right? If you look at the 5-day chart, it looks really bullish. I mean, you can clearly see A, B, C, right? And then you're impulsing here. So you have an impulse, A, B, C. And now hopefully this turns into another impulse, right? We flag out and then we just skyrocket, right? And all of that makes sense because when you look at XRP, there's no other chart in crypto that looks like it, right? A lot of charts like ADA and Filecoin, for example, they look similar. I mean, there's a lot of them that look almost identical in certain ways, but XRP has a totally different look. And that's attractive to me because it makes me wonder, you know, what is it setting up to do? And my whole thing is, you know, that this is some type of you know, a finished 3-wave pullback, right? Because we have 3 waves up, and then you have A, B, C, 3 waves down. And then you impulse to the upside, and then you flag out, and then once it's finished, you break out, right? And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then the whole thing becomes A, B, and C, right? So we're still waiting for that to happen. And I think, you know, it takes time because it's a slow-moving chart. You know, it's basically years and years of torture, and then you get like 3 weeks of your pants on fire, you know? Here's another one. I took my, I didn't really want to get it because it was bottlenecking in here, so I didn't have the good look to it, but we did get sort of a short squeeze, and we popped right back to the top. But one of the best things about this chart is the way it's building its base. It's building a pretty beautiful base here, and you can see just how gorgeous it looks. And the reason why is because, number one, you have this amazing inverse head and shoulders here, right? Number two, right, you're cupping in, you're cupping in, you're cupping in, right? You're cupping, so that's good. And then last but not least is you have this beautiful 3-wave pullback. So you have an impulse, a 3-wave pullback. I mean, you can't get any better than that. So that's a 1, that's a 2. So this is probably 1 of 3. So then we get 2 of 3, and then we get 3 of 3, right? So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. So I know they increased their supply, and that's another thing we have to talk about too, is inflation with crypto. For example, well, I'll mention that in a second, but you know, back over here at the all-time high, you had X amount of tokens. Back over here, we actually have more tokens. So the actual market cap could be higher. You know, for example, let's say we get back to the middle here. The market cap could be higher here than it was back over here. So that's the whole thing about tokenomics, right? It's kind of interesting to think about. That's why not all cryptos move the same, is because they have different inflation rates and things like that. So, but if you look at regular inflation, for example, with Bitcoin, right? And we go to the we go to a higher time frame. So look, technically speaking, Bitcoin did not break a new all-time high. You say, what do you mean? That's false. That's fake news. We totally did. Well, think about it. Back over here was the all-time high, right? Okay, so that was back in 2021, right? So, or 2021, 2021, we hit about 66K, 67K. Okay, so $67,000 in 2021 is actually more money than $76,000 in 2024. You see what I mean? So when you adjust actual inflation to the Bitcoin price, we probably need more like 80K to hit it through inflation. You know what I mean? Not inflation with Bitcoin, but inflation with the US dollar. So I thought that was kind of interesting to think about that. ICP, this is another one that kind of looked like ADA in a way. So let me see what's going on with it. Maybe we can catch it before. Yeah, so you had that little move, you flushed the low, right? So if we pull up ADA real quick, you can kind of see, right, ICP on the side. I mean, look how, I mean, it looks very close, like I said, right? You have 3 up, you got 3 up, you come down, you channel, come down, you channel, you spike the low, you have a 1-2, right? Spike the low, it looks like a 1-2, right? And then bam, you have that breakout. So I don't know, maybe ICP can get something similar, but it needs to hurry up if it's going to do it. Because, by the time this corrects, you're already correcting. But yeah, it's pretty bullish for ADA. Remember, ADA was one of the best performing altcoins back in 2021. I mean, it went up enormously. So just to get back where we are now, I really wish I would have bought some, but just to get back to the top here, 600%, that's about 88%. So yeah, let's see how it plays out. I mean, it also has that W pattern playing out, where you kind of come up like this and then you swoop around like what Ethereum did, right? So this could be the beginning of life-changing momentum coming, right? It might take some time, and I think, hopefully the Bitcoin bull market goes beyond 150K. You know what I mean? Hopefully it takes, another 6 to 9 months, maybe another year, right? That gives altcoins and inflation plenty of time to really skyrocket to the upside. Because, when you look at ICP, it looks like it's, well, just real quick, if you look at ADA, you can see a little base in here, right? Now, if you look at ICP, you see that little base in there, right? It's just starving to break out. All right. So also Filecoin. Look at Filecoin. Filecoin's in also another, in a similar situation here. where you have this 3-wave move down. So you have 3 up, you have 3 down, you're right back to the low, you spike the high. Now let's flag out a little bit and then hopefully continue higher. So anyways, that'll do it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit that like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.